Hello and thanks for joining us for our mid-morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Mark Broom. Let's start by taking a look at the day's headlines. US President Donald Trump confirms he will hold his second summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un early next year. However, talks set for Thursday in New York between America's top diplomat and Kim's right-hand man are called off. President Trump claims victory in the US midterms despite losing the House to the Democrats. The Republicans, however, tighten their grip on the Senate. Plus, after teasing consumers for years, Samsung Electronics finally unveils its foldable smartphone. We take a closer look at the device that has the tech world buzzing. So let's start in the United States, Washington to be exact. Despite the postponement of high-level North Korea-U.S. talks originally set for Thursday, President Trump says his planned second summit with the leader of North Korea is still a meeting he plans to attend. Trump also played down the sudden cancellation of this week's talks in New York, saying when it comes to North Korea, he isn't in a rush. E.G. Won starts us off.
U.S. President Donald Trump appears confident that he will hold his second summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un early next year.
Sometime next year, I would say.
Sometime next year?
Sometime early next year.
At a press conference after the midterm elections on Wednesday, President Trump fielded questions from reporters at the White House, including why Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's meeting with his North Korean counterpart had been postponed.
We're going to change it because of trips that are being made. We're going to make it at another date. But we're very happy how it's going with North Korea. We think it's going fine. We're in no rush. We're in no hurry.
Trump once again reminded reporters of his achievements so far, including the seizing of North Korea's missile and nuclear threats, as well as the return of war remains. While emphasizing that he is in no rush, Trump also mentioned that the sanctions are still on and hinted that North Korea must also be responsive.
Now, I'd love to take the sanctions off, but they have to be responsive too. It's a two-way street. But we're not in any rush.
This comes hours after the U.S. State Department announced the postponement of Pompeo's meeting with the head of North Korea's ruling Workers' Party's Central Committee Kim Yong-chol, which was slated to take place in New York on Thursday. While no explanation was made on why the talks were pushed back, the State Department's deputy spokesperson Robert Palladino said at a briefing that this is a case dealing with purely a scheduling issue. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, bar from a few recounts here and there, the US midterm elections results are out, and it's a split, as was mostly forecast. The Democrats, they won back the House, while the Republicans solidified their control of the Senate, gaining a few seats in the process. The Democrats' victory in the House, albeit far from any kind of blue wave some had projected, does signal a tougher time ahead for President Trump's agendas, of which there are many. Cha Sang-mi has this report.
The Democrats seized control of the House in Tuesday's pivotal midterm elections. Control of the lower chamber will allow Democrats to block key parts of President Trump's agenda and reopen investigations into his administration. The Democrats elected are also younger, more racially diverse, and include more women. A Democrat-led House presents obstacles to the Trump administration, which has taken a hardline stance on immigration in particular. But despite the apparent setback, President Trump responded with a celebratory tweet, calling it a tremendous success after the Republicans retained control of the Senate. The likely new House Speaker, Democrat Nancy Pelosi, a veteran progressive from San Francisco who's held a post before, also made clear the new majority would exert an institutional check on the White House.
Today is more than about Democrats and Republicans. It's about restoring the Constitution's checks and balances to the Trump administration.
Democrats could pick up more than 30 seats in the House, but they lost significantly in the Senate races in major red states like Indiana, North Dakota, and Tennessee. Republican businessman Mike Brown also beat the Democratic incumbent Joe Donnelly in the battleground state of Indiana, where Trump won by 20 percentage points back in 2016. When it comes to Democrats, the two African-American Democratic governor candidates, Stacey Abrams in Georgia and Andrew Gillum in Florida, lost to their Republican challengers. And a rising star, Beto O'Rourke, was defeated in his race against Republican Senator Ted Cruz of Texas. But the Democrats were successful in attracting an army of young voters compared to the last midterms 4 years ago. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
Now, as a follow-on to that report, the outcome of the US midterm elections are also closely tied to the on-again, off-again, on-again, off-again nuclear negotiations between North Korea and the United States. For a closer look at that aspect of these midterms, Park Hee-jun reports.
In the 2018 U.S. midterm elections, Republicans have held on to power in the Senate and Democrats have seized the House. So where are denuclearization talks with North Korea headed from here? The Democrats, with their tougher stance on the North, will likely try to put the brakes on the administration. They're also likely to demand that more be done on the North's human rights issues. But experts believe that all in all, the influence of the election on nuclear negotiations with North Korea will be limited, since foreign policy is mostly conducted by the administration and the foreign and military committees of the Senate.
But I think that there will be indirect result. One is that especially the security side or also foreign policy, it's the Senate matter, more of a Senate matter in the U.S. So by having a more of a majority with the result of this midterm election, probably Donald Trump is more empowered to push forward what he wants to do with the North and the U.S. relationship.
North Korea is likely to become even more important for President Trump because results on that front could help him in the presidential election 2 years from now. Foreign policy is much more important in presidential elections than in the midterms, and so the Trump administration will have to keep up the momentum of its dialogue with North Korea and achieve a successful outcome in the second summit with leader Kim Jong-un. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
History was made during the 2018 US midterm elections as young Kim was elected to the US House of Representatives, becoming the first Korean-American woman to win a coveted spot in the US Congress. Lee Seung-jae has this report.
A historic day at the 2018 U.S. midterm elections as California's 39th congressional district election saw Republican Young Kim beat Democrat Gil Cisneros, garnering 51.3% of the votes. Kim becomes the first Korean-American woman to be elected into Congress and the first Korean-American in 20 years to be elected. It was an emotional victory for the self-made woman who won the tight race.
Despite all of the millions of dollars that came at me, this is one election that we can prove that we cannot buy ourselves into a seat.
Ed Royce, the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, announced his retirement from California's 39th district seat in January and had endorsed Kim since then.
I want to share with you that over that span of time, in my opinion, from the people that I've met in public service, no one has ever worked as hard as Young Kim.
Young Kim worked for Royce for 2 decades, first when he was a state senator and then in Congress. Kim let the Korean community in her district know she will take care of them, even though it may take time.
There may be times when I cannot work for the Korean community because I have to succeed in mainstream society, so I can give back to the Korean community later.
She will now represent the district, which includes parts of Los Angeles, Orange, and San Bernardino counties, which is 2/3 Asian and Latino. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And congratulations to her. Now, President Moon Jae-in will be racking up some serious air miles again next week. He is going to be taking part in a series of summits in Singapore and also Papua New Guinea. Both meetings are going to bring together world leaders from more than a dozen countries, so he'll be able to expand upon his diplomacy in regards to North Korea. Our Presidential Office correspondent Shin Se-min reports.
President Moon Jae-in is flying out to Singapore and Papua New Guinea next Tuesday for a 6-day trip to take part in a series of regional summits with ASEAN member nations. The president will be in Singapore from the 13th through the 16th for a set of ASEAN-related meetings, including the Korea-ASEAN Summit, the ASEAN Plus 3 Summit, and the East Asia Summit. There, the president plans to start a conversation on expanding substantial cooperation with countries in the region and to use the East Asia Summit to cement support from member nations for his peace drive with Pyongyang. And while in Singapore, President Moon will also be attending regional free trade talks dubbed the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP. Those include 10 ASEAN nations, plus South Korea, China, Japan, India, Australia, and New Zealand. From 17th till the 18th, the president will be in Papua New Guinea to attend the annual APEC summit being held under the theme of Harnessing Inclusive Opportunities, Embracing a Digital Future. There, he will be sharing his vision for an innovative and inclusive nation and propose setting up a fund to boost the region's digital capabilities. The underlying objective of the trip, though, bringing the international community on board the Moon administration's goal of ultimate peace.
The visits next week will be used to improve the international community's understanding of and support for our government's efforts to realize complete denuclearization and to establish lasting peace on the Korean Peninsula.
While abroad, President Moon will be holding sideline summits with U.S. Vice President Mike Pence and Russian President Vladimir Putin, as well as with Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison. The presidential office, however, did not confirm a summit meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, but did say a meetup is under discussion. Diplomacy on the sidelines of the summit next week is also garnering much attention, with leaders of the regional powers, the U.S. and Russia, likely to discuss issues of North Korea with President Moon, who had been brokering nuclear talks with the North, especially now with another setback in the seemingly stalled talks between Pyongyang and Washington. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Japanese politicians have been threatening to take legal action over the South Korean Supreme Court's ruling ordering a Japanese company to compensate workers forced to work for it with zero pay at all during World War II. On Wednesday, South Korea's Prime Minister expressed deep regret over those and other remarks he called aggressive. Lee Na-kyun said they were neither reasonable nor wise, and that in a democracy like South Korea, the government cannot meddle in decisions by the judiciary. The PM said the Supreme Court's decision did not deny the treaty signed by the two countries in 1965 on compensation, but only clarified its scope when it comes to individuals. He criticised what he called an attempt to trigger a diplomatic dispute over the issue and urged a wise response from Japan's leaders. Things are moving fast in Washington. U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions has been fired, canned after more than a year of unrelenting criticism from his boss, President Donald Trump. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn, as we always do, to our Noah Adam. So Adam, not that unexpected, but surprising nonetheless.
Yes, that's right, Mark. Sessions' departure was widely expected to come soon after Tuesday's midterms. In a letter to the White House on Wednesday, Sessions wrote he was resigning upon President Trump's request. Sessions had endured repeated public attacks from his boss over his recusal from the investigation into alleged collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign. The Russia probe has been a constant thorn in the president's side, and he blames Sessions' decision for opening the door to the appointment of special counsel Robert Mueller. Sessions' exit marks yet another high-profile departure from the Trump White House. The 71-year-old was Attorney General for just under 2 years. Trump tweeted Sessions' chief of staff, that is Matthew Whitaker, will become acting Attorney General. The departure also leaves unclear the fate of Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, who appointed Mueller and has been overseeing his probe. Whitaker, who has criticised Mueller's appointment, will reportedly be taking over that role. In other news, scientists at Oxford University say a tax on red meat could save around 220,000 lives a year worldwide. In their research, the scientists also stated that such measures would raise billions of dollars and save money on healthcare costs. The World Health Organization has stated that red meat, such as beef, lamb and pork, increases the risk of heart disease, diabetes and cancer. The study also looked into optimal taxation levels for meat in nearly 150 countries. It suggested for wealthier nations a 20% tax should be levied on red meat, and that processed meat, such as bacon and sausages, should double in price. The US midterm election results were a mixed bag for political parties, but it turns out there was one clear winner, and that is marijuana. 3 states voted to legalize cannabis in Tuesday's poll, with Utah and Missouri approving the drug for medical use, while Michigan allowed recreational use. 33 states have now legalized medical marijuana, and 10 states plus Washington, D.C. have legalized recreational marijuana. The next challenge for cannabis advocates is to get the drug legal at the federal level.
Samsung Electronics has revealed a foldable screen device that's scheduled to be released in 2019. The flexible screens that can be folded in half without breaking could make the phones much more versatile for work, enabling users to enjoy an increased screen size without having to make the devices too big to fit in your pocket. Yet it's unclear whether the new feature will appeal to the wider public, especially as they are expected to retail at more than $1,000 US. It's a phone that fits neatly. The recent spate of fires affecting BMW vehicles, which prompted a mass recall here in South Korea, may have been caused by a malfunction in a different part than claimed by the German auto giant, as the local public-private probe into fire-prone BMW cars reveals new findings. Experts say additional recalls now seem unavoidable. Kim Hyo-sun with the details.
A joint investigation team probing into the cause of fires in BMW vehicles says the main cause lies in the malfunction of the exhaust gas recirculation valves, not the EGR bypass, as previously claimed by the German automaker.
We are confident that we have found the root cause, and this has become clear to us. The root cause is a leaky cooler module, as stated on a number of occasions as well. And there is one spot where higher temperatures can arise, as I mentioned, where the AGR valve is.
The team, comprised of individual experts and government officials led by the Korea Transportation Safety Authority, announced its interim findings on Wednesday. It explained the deposits caused by the EGR cooler leakage when exposed to high-temperature exhaust emissions flowing in through EGR valves triggered sparks inside the engine compartment. The spark ultimately grew and caused fire in the engine room when exposed to air in high-speed driving conditions.
It's worth noting that the cause of the fire that was sparked on the deposits caused by the EGR cooler leakage was not the bypass valve, but the EGR valve. The fire ignited when both of the valves were malfunctioning.
As the studies find another reason associated to the spate of fires, bringing into question BMW's focus on the EGR bypass, additional recalls seem likely. The investigation team is set to release its final results next month, which will be used to make recommendations for the South Korean government. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
The rift between South Korea's carpool companies and taxi unions reached boiling point last month when thousands of taxi drivers protested against Kakao's upcoming ride-sharing app. It has sparked a debate on whether the government should encourage the growth of sharing economy platforms or continue to protect traditional businesses and workers. Oh Soo-young has this report.
Korea's #1 carpool app was forced to downsize drastically this year, laying off 70% of its employees. It has faced legal hurdles and lawsuits, preventing it from growing further.
In other countries, they have huge carpool firms with the range of services like letting passengers transfer to public bicycles. We also want to grow, but due to murky regulations, we couldn't try even 10% of what we would have liked to achieve.
Korea was once seen as one of the global centres of the sharing economy, promoting the growth of a range of platform firms. But now those very companies are questioning whether the sharing economy is dying in the country due to red tape and strong opposition from traditional businesses. The transport laws currently ban the commercial use of private vehicles, except during commuting hours, which haven't yet been specified. Calls for regulatory reform have been drowned out by the cries of taxi unions, who worry that car and ride-sharing platforms will take away drivers' jobs. There are other unresolved issues, such as liability in the case of accidents, as well as verifying the safety of the vehicle and its occupants. Home sharing is another sector that's experiencing legal setbacks. Under Korean law, homeowners can only rent out their spaces to foreigners, not domestic travellers. Airbnb last month launched a petition to revise this act, but other accommodation businesses are worried.
With new services like Airbnb, the market share of traditional accommodation and room prices are falling. Also, many venues listed on the platforms don't meet safety standards like having fire exits, nor do they pay taxes on their income. We need more crackdowns on such cases.
Sharing platforms argue that the bar is set too high compared to other countries, and that they're actually expanding the market.
People go to hotel and stay 1 or 2 nights, whereas a lot of our guests stay longer than 5 nights. And these people have different traveling needs. Some travel with families, some may need kitchen where they need to cook their own food. So we do want to provide different options for different travelers.
While the debate rages on, most industry analysts say change is inevitable for both platform firms and traditional firms.
Even if we block services like Uber or Airbnb from operating in our country, there will be some other innovative service that challenges our current industrial landscape. The government needs to take action considering the various conditions and trends in an industry-specific manner.
Finance Minister Kim Dong-yeon last week stressed the need to foster the sharing economy, despite the initial growing pains of regulatory reform, to expand the pie as a whole and create more jobs for respective sectors. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Good morning. The rainfall has washed away most of the dust from the air, while Chungcheongdo and Jeollado provinces will see cleaner air in the afternoon. And the rain is forecast to come down heavily all day today, with up to 60 millimeters of rainfall expected here in the capital. But despite the showers, temperatures won't drop much, so let's take a closer look. Highs will range between 13 and 22 degrees Celsius, and Seoul will get up to 16 degrees this afternoon. Now, this year's university entrance exam called Suneung is only a week away, and temperatures are forecast to remain on the milder side until then. That's Korea for you, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now on this Thursday morning here in Seoul. Do stay tuned to Arirang TV. We'll have our next newscast coming up at noon, Korea time, as always, with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.